live and direct. You are tuned into the Bro Diallo Show, broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary hypocrisy that is the city of Chirac, state of Illinois. Today is June 13th in the year of your Lord 2018. Welcome to the post-nuclear age of America. Cut it. All right, before I get started, I'm wondering, how are we enjoying? I haven't heard much feedback concerning. Wait a minute. Hold up, wait a minute. Okay. I haven't heard much feedback concerning our new sanctuary, wow. Why does that have to be turned all the way up? Weird. Really weird. Anyway. I haven't heard much feedback on our new sanctuaries cafe system since Starbucks went through the effort to purge racial insensitivity from the ranks of its staff, from the minds and hearts of its staff, and commit itself to be a sanctuary. See, the immigrant population, they have sanctuary cities, of which I live in a sanctuary city that is a sanctuary not for its citizens, but it is supposedly a sanctuary for immigrants, documented and undocumented immigrants. And it's very proud. Chicago promotes itself as a sanctuary city. California, Seattle, Washington. So there are several sanctuary cities where black people have been in this country long before 90% of white folks even got here. Second wave migration didn't even come to the late 1800s, when most black people can trace their lineage back to this nation, dating back to the 1600s or even prior to that. So most black people have been here longer than most white folks in this country, especially non-Anglo-Saxon Protestant white folks. But we never got a sanctuary. The whole nation. In fact, there's a wonderful book that I think every single African family should have this book in their home, called Without Sanctuary, which is a coffee table book of lynching photography. And the intro to that book, the historical write-up on lynching in the introduction to that book is one of the best essays or articles that I've ever read on the culture and mentality behind. Now, this is, again, like all things in the United States, some distortion, hypocritical nonsense, because throughout the Obama administration, Obama was aggressively violating the human rights and basic human dignity of migrants coming from all. He had set records in illegal and extra legal deportation, meaning that he did not even follow the U.S. Laws and protocol concerning the housing, detention, and deportation of immigrants to the United States. But there were no sanctuary cities, because even though Obama was committing human rights violations and committing atrocities against immigrant in the United States, he said kind words, and he did funny dances, and he sang pretty songs whenever he was standing in front of a podium. And that's all America really is. It's just a candy coating on on dehumanizing atrocities over the centuries. So there was no need for sanctuary cities, even though immigrants under the Obama administration were under siege. Obama, even though he had immigrants under siege, was always saying, I don't intend to keep immigrants under siege. I would like to give immigrants reforms and favorable policies. And the only thing he really did do for immigrants is set up a list with all the information from all immigrants for Trump to utilize DACA, where to sign up for DACA, all they had to do was sign everything, give their location, check in, and so when Trump office, the DACA was basically a detailed list of where to find illegal immigrants and their families, their ambitions, their dreams, their place of work. So the few immigrants that he did supposedly help, he basically set them up for the knockover. Anyway, they got sanctuary cities now. And black folks ain't had. That's why I call Chicago the sanctuary hypocrisy, because black people are under siege in Chicago, even though Chicago is regularly rated one of the safest cities, one of the most walkable cities, one of the most progressive cities, one of the most democratic cities, the cities with the most mileage of bike lanes, all this favorable. You know, one of the cities with the largest amount of freshwater beachfront beaches and property along Lake Michigan. Chicago, if you look at non-black Chicago, in fact, if you could clip or snip off black Chicago, this city would damn near be a utopia. And for a city, but soon as you tack black folks back on and our demographics and our stats come into the overall city, and in fact, the city has a deliberate and direct policy of purging its black inhabitants. In fact, they just produced a list of Chicago gangs for all Chicago law enforcement, federal, state, and local law enforcement have been passing around the new updated gangs list, Chicago gangs list. And it has, they said they have over 60 active gangs, and they find that all of the core gangs, the BDs, the GDs, and all of that, they are fracturing and splintering. So where instead of having large centralized gangs with centralized leaderships, they have all of these small factions that have no real loyalty towards internal loyalty. A chaotic situation. But one of the key features that they're finding is that gangs are exiting the city and spreading out into the suburbs. And so all you good black folks, you hardworking black folks, you salt of the earth black folks, you respectable black folks, you pull your pants up black folks, you know, you Cosby Protocol black folks who work hard and get out the ghetto, like the who grew up watching A Different World, and every damn episode it seems of A Different World. You had Sinbad, King High Butt, or Dwayne Wayne or Whitley talking about, oh, these kids, oh, we got to help these kids so they can work hard and get out of the ghetto. Now, I've never in my life seen an episode of any other show or even heard it articulated any other people seen as a key to success or identifier of the success, being able to escape your community. And that was promoted heavy. I don't know, I don't watch young people media of today, I have to admit. I don't consume young media. So I don't know what the teenage oriented or the 20-something oriented media is saying to them. But I know when I was coming up, in my teens and early 20s, all of the hip, fresh, funky, fresh, dope, wickety, jiggy media was telling black people, especially of my demographic, of my socioeconomic status, that if we worked hard and we obeyed the law and we didn't get pregnant or impregnate anyone else, then we could make it out of the ghetto. And even from the first time, I always thought that was peculiar, because Malcolm X said in 1964, you can never make it out of the ghetto, because anywhere you move to, if you're a black person in the United States, anywhere you move to is eventually going to become a ghetto. White people have had a consistent threshold that whenever an area reaches, what is it? Some places it varies between 5 to 8% black. That's it. That's not only when white people move away, which doesn't matter. Black folks, for the most part, don't care if white folks move away. But whenever white folks move away, which again isn't the problem, the divestment becomes. starts. That's when resources are pulled out. Banks are not making residential or commercial loans. Established multinational corporations will close down what infrastructure they have. The city and state government's tax base will drop out the bottom, not because of the residents, because black people tend to pay higher percentage of taxes than white people do, higher percentage of their income, but because there's no commercial taxation, because there's no commercial investment, because white people don't make commercial loans in areas that are defined as black. So long story short, Malcolm X said in the 60s, you can't move out of the ghetto because the ghetto, because of the racial caste system in the United States, is your flesh and bone. So the only thing you can do is a temporary reprieve from the ghetto. You can't escape the ghetto. They even have LeBron James, King James, moved to this elite gated community, had the biggest house in the whitest part of town and the highest income. And one day he comes home from, I don't know where he went, to Costco with his family, his wife, his black wife, and his black children. And he pulls up and there's nigger spray painted on his gate. Well, I read a report a few years ago, Oprah Winfrey, in one of her many properties, gets harassed and mocked by her neighbors. Oprah was out walking one of her little pedigree dogs one time, and she apparently dropped a sweater or something. And later she comes home and finds on her gate, the sweater is strewn across the gate in an unsightly, disrespectful manner. And she thought to herself, normally in this type of community, why wouldn't they knock on the door? Why wouldn't they engage me and say, hey, Oprah, every white person knows who the hell she is. Hey, neighbor. She just felt that she's treated in an unneighborly fashion. I ended up seeing last summer I went to Sag Harbor, around all affluent black folks, educated black folks. I mean, all their pants were all the way up to the belly button. Not a pair of sagging pants. I didn't even see acrylic nails. The kind of people who will pay their utility bills before they go out and buy sneakers. All the stuff you say we need to do to end our oppression. And I saw discrimination. I saw dehumanization. I saw disrespect. So long story short, you can't leave the ghetto. You can't move out of the ghetto. I know black youth of wealthy families who go to boarding schools or some of the elite private schools, and their little white classmates say, you're brown like dirt. You look like dirt. You look like feces. I had one, a relative who was very affluent, very wealthy. Parents sent him to a private school, and he said when he would leave the private school, there'd be a bus service. And when the bus would take all the white kids to this affluent area in Connecticut, they would drive him to the ghetto of Connecticut, to the outside the affluent area, and drop him off. Even though he had been told, the bus driver and the school and the administrator, the teacher had all been told several times, he lives in the same affluent area as the white kids. And it got to the point where the poor black people would see this little rich black kid come up, and they were like, okay, well, you can sit in the barbershop or you can wait in the black grocery store until your parents come get you. Because they just refuse to accept that this black person. So, long story short, Bill Cosby lied. A Different World lied. All those inspirational black shows, inspirational black songs, inspirational black books that said, if you work hard, you can get out the ghetto. Because the ghetto was never a building. It was never a neighborhood. It was never a street or a series of street corners. It was never on the map. The ghetto is our facial features. The ghetto is our hair texture. The ghetto is our skin tone. Now, some of y'all are trying to escape that ghetto, bleaching your skin, chemically altering your hair texture, surgically altering your facial features. Even altering how you walk, holding your butts tight when you walk, and altering your voice when you talk, and you pretend like it's code switching when it's really dehumanizing. You know, code switching is a fancy way of saying self-hate, self-denial. And I hate to be the one to break it to you, but I went and talked to some young people. And in fact, I've talked to some young people on the south side of Chicago. Black, all black. I went and talked to some black and brown youth in Joliet. And I had to tell them, you can't win, you can't make it, and you can't get out of the game. But a lot of black people who get wealth, who get up there, who get that paper, who get that status, who get those degrees, they don't want to admit to the rest of us who are striving to get there what they go through. They ball till they fall because they're like in a foreign land. And if you know any foreigners, if you know any immigrants, migrants, I know a lot. I know too many non-citizens. I know brothers from Nigeria, sisters from Nigeria, Gambia, Kenya, South Africa, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Guyana, Jamaica. Oh, I know way too many Jamaicans. Trinidadians, GT man, Bajans. And one thing, all these people who come here, even the conscious ones, even the Pan-Africanists, and I can't deny, when they go home, they like to ball. They don't often like to tell their countrymen, when they return home, the full reality of what they deal with here in the United States. They like to say, hey, I made it, I did it, I earned it, it's all right, I'm okay. And either they don't want their people to worry about them in the United States, or they want to give the impression that, yes, the American dream is real and I'm living it. Because it's like, hey, I worked so hard to get here, legally or extra legally, and I don't want to admit that I put all this time, effort, and resources into something that is a myth. So we do that when we cross borders, but we also do that when we cross class lines and class realities. So I go from lower class, from working class, to poverty, to upper middle class, to wealth, to riches, and I'm going to tell everybody I left behind, yeah, it's great up here. You see that picture I posted of myself on that Learjet? See that picture I posted of myself drinking samosas on a French Riviera? It's so great. It's almost like I'm not black anymore. So black people, that's the trick. So there's no escaping our condition. We can transform our conditions, but we have to transform the fundamental material reality and the fundamental material relationships of the entire planet. It is not just getting a degree, being responsible with our income, saving properly, investing properly. That ain't gonna cut it. I know I'm not saying don't do none of that, but don't lie about what that'll do for you. Only thing it will do for you is increase your consumption capacity. And what is consumption capacity? Your ability to buy whatever other people make. Which is not a very dignified position, because the people will sell you. The same people sell, we go into these beauty shops in the hood, and they look at us with utter contempt as they take our money. But it doesn't matter whether you buying some bundles of Remy, or some do-rags in the Korean shop in the ghetto, or you're in Dubai, buying your fourth Lamborghini, buying a Maybach Benz. The people selling you Maybach Benzes in the Dubai, black folks, or the people selling you bundles of Remy in the ghetto, black folks, they still look at you with the same level of contempt. Whether you're spending $20 from the welfare or $20 million that you earn from investments, it's all the same. So the sooner we all come to terms with that there's even though we do have class stratification, there's no real hierarchy amongst slaves. And I hate to break that to you. But we should encourage our children to get revolution, not to get wealth. And I know you're not going to hear this from a Will Smith inspirational video. But I mean, you look past all the inspiration in his goofy facial expressions. There's some pain in that man's eyes too. But He's got a full staff of makeup artists and script writers and rehearsal folks that can help him to mask the pain, I suppose. But moving on, Father's Day, and I'm going to get to my topic, I promise you. The art of war, Trump's long con. Trump is running game. And who's behind Trump's game? Who's really writing the Trump agenda? And why Trump is is damn near looking like he's really tricking y'all tricks who don't understand that he's tricking. Why Father's Day is coming up. This Sunday will be Father's Day. And there's one thing I want the black community to do. Is stop calling Father's Day Father's Day. And let's call it what it originally was. It was called St. Joseph's Day. And St. Joseph is the cuckold, Mary's husband. St. Joseph is the dude who walked in on God, mounting his woman, inseminating his woman. But then again, I guess we can't really say Joseph was a cuckold, because do y'all know what that is? I just learned what it is. Let me not even play like I'm that worldly or smart. I just learned what a cuck is. It's basically a man whose wife is sleeping with another man. So I believe that's it. But Joseph could easily say, yo, I didn't get played because God didn't sleep with my wife. He impregnated her, yes, but not through sexual intercourse. Because for some reason, God just don't like women. And I'm talking about Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, the Abrahamic God, got some real hang-ups about women and women's anatomy. So God knew it would say, hey, I want a son. I want a begotten son. But I don't want to have to touch a woman. I don't want to have to even be in the presence of a woman. I don't want to have to share the space with a woman. I don't even want to communicate with a woman. So God took his magic sperm and, I don't know, put it into a cosmic turkey baster and handed it to one of his messengers. It's like, here, could you please take this? And took it to Mary. And then the angel came and said, hey, Mary, I'm the messenger of God. And I wonder if Mary's like, well, why can't God talk to me himself? God is omnipresent. He's omnipotent. He's omniscient. Why? God is in the room with him, with us right now. Why don't he talk to me directly? You know why God didn't talk to Mary? Did he talk to everybody else directly? He talked to Moses directly. He wrestled with some dude. Well, who's the dude? God was wrestling in the woods with some dude just a few years before that. You know, come on, let's wrestle. God didn't send a messenger to wrestle with a man. Hey, it is Pride Month. It's time we probably should look a little deeper into this. I mean, it's just peculiar to me. I'm speculating. I'm not a religious scholar, so I need somebody to explain it to me. Why would God wrestle with one man? Like literally, like headlocks, oiled up, shirts off, in the dirt, wrestling, pinning each other down. Said he wrestled with a man all night. So God is not above having physical contact with these primates we call human. He's not above communicating. But when the one woman that would carry his magical sperm, he didn't talk to her. He didn't touch her. Anyway, that's not my point. Just every time I think about that, you know, God is like and we know that's what they say, Republicans will be the first to tell you, God is a Republican. And they're always, cleanliness, ungodly, unnatural sex acts. Like, how many more evangelical religious Republicans are they going to find in a bathroom stall with underage boys before we figure something else, figure out that something's going on here? Anyway, I digress. But if you're a religious scholar, help me to understand. Help me figure it out, because I don't understand it. Anyway, moving on. St. Joseph. The Catholics had a holiday called St. Joseph's Day. And St. Joseph's Day was to celebrate all fathers, because the Father of God was the example for all fathers to follow. Joseph came and was like, oh, I got me this fresh, young, untouched virgin. And when we get to Bethlehem, it is going down. Woo! And they were even like, we don't have a... And so anyway, now I'm kind of mixing it up. But anyway, when Jesus, when Joseph put a ring on it and was like, okay, let's get it on. Throw down the tomahawk. Let's get it on. And Mary was like, oh, I'm pregnant. He was like, what? It's like, I'm pregnant. An angel came to me in the night and told me that I will be carrying the seed, descendant of King David, descendant of Father Abraham, descendant of Moses, down a long line of holy men. I carry within my womb the Savior of humanity. I carry within my womb God manifest in the flesh, Joseph. And Joseph was like, word, okay. And not only that, the Catholics taught. Now the Protestants say otherwise. So this is a Christian debate. The Catholics said throughout his whole marriage with Mary, he never touched Mary. Mary lived her life and died a virgin. And the Virgin Mother, Immaculate Conception, Virgin Mother. So Joseph, not only did he not ever touch Mary, defile Mary, penetrate Mary, he also never touched another woman. But they don't call him the Virgin Father. But the Virgin Mary. But the Protestants said, well, Jesus did have siblings, and that's where, the Da Vinci Code, a bunch of mess. But anyway, either way, some say he did get in there, some say he never got it. And it's confusing. Maybe, you know how religious men are. He walked the streets during the day talking about, I never touched my wife as the mother of God. Never touched her, and then he go to the bar, shoot some craps, get a little drink, get a little smoke, and then like, I tear it up, how I do. So you know how religious men are. You never know what to believe. But long story short, the Catholics thought that Joseph was the model father because he was dutiful. He was there for Mary, even in the time of great tragedy when he could have had Mary stoned to get death. He could have had Mary exiled for being pregnant with child. But he says, no, I'm going to raise God. And he taught God how to be a carpenter. Again, I don't understand carpenter. There weren't no trees around back then. I don't know where they was getting wood to be carpenters, but Jesus was a carpenter. So he taught Jesus a trade. He threw the ball around with Jesus. He bounced Jesus on his knees. He burped Jesus when he, the whole nine. And they was like, what? That is the true model for all fathers. And the Catholic said, if you are a father, you must be as dutiful as Joseph, not to question your woman, not to dishonor your woman, not to defile your woman, but to be there to love her and her offspring regardless of their parentage. So they started to have St. Joseph's Day. And the tradition of St. Joseph's Day is to encourage or motivate all fathers to be as holy and as godly as Joseph, the father of God, the husband of the Queen Virgin Mother. St. Joseph's Day. But in the West, they wanted to get a little secular because, they had the Protestant Reformation. And then they had the Inquisition, the Protestant Inquisition, the Roman Inquisition. So even though the Protestants wanted to carry over some holidays from the Catholics, they wanted to put their own spin on it. And since the Catholics venerate Mary, they venerate the Holy Virgin Mother. Whereas the Protestants say, we're going to play down Mary, we're going to play her down her role. We're going to big up Jesus, but we're going to play down Mary. And so they say we can't play down Mary without playing down that simp that she was with, play down Joseph. So that's when Father's Day morphed or was born out of St. Joseph's Day. But now we got all these black militants, all these black nationalists, all these black straight pride, all these black father in the home, black traditionalists who are out here really banging hard for Father's Day. And in the same breath, they tell us, don't celebrate Christmas, don't celebrate 4th of July, don't celebrate none of these white holidays. Except Father's Day, which you can't get more white or more Christian than Father's Day. So maybe if we could educate the Umarites and Irritated Genie and all these other men who want to beat women over the head every Father's Day, that if a woman dare says, I'm the mama and the father, or Happy Father's Day to single mothers, or Happy Father's Day to studs, stud stepfathers, lesbian stud stepfathers, Happy Father's Day to all the artificial insemination clinic and doctors, whoever people help that, whatever people that help assist impregnating women and raising up the offspring of women is defined as a father. I don't know. If you didn't give birth to it, but you're trying to raise it, then you're a father and instead of the mother. Or even if you're the mother and you're raising it as a woman, maybe you're the mother, adopted mothers, and I don't know. Y'all confuse me about it. Y'all get so technical. Long story short, it just seems contradictory to me. I don't particularly celebrate Father's Day. But I do celebrate it, not in terms of being a father, but I celebrate it by mocking men that get so emotional about Father's Day. You ever see Bridezilla, where the women are like, it's my day. No, it's my day. Or the Super Sweet 16, I can't even say that. The Sweet 16 show, where the kids all, it's my day. You can't yell at me on my day. You can't say no to me on my day. It's my day. And they throw these tantrums. Grown-ass men act the same damn way. Now, if I'm out and about, especially when my sons were younger, I used to get Father's Day greetings all the time. Hey, happy Father's Day, happy Father's Day, happy Father's Day. I'm like, yeah, thank you. I'm always gracious. I'm like, oh, thank you. But I'm not a fan of Father. I don't care nothing about none of that. Don't buy me no ties, no coffee mugs. I mean, really, a Father's Day for me, give me some peanut butter cups, some cookies, and let me sit in front of the Xbox and leave me the hell alone. Really, I already got my peanut butter cups. I already got the Xbox. I already know how to sit. Just leave me alone. Really, that's all I really need you to do, because I got everything else I need from days before Father's Day. So maybe y'all can explain that to me. And maybe let's start calling. So, St. Joseph's Day. I'm done calling Father's Day Father's Day. It's St. Joseph's Day. And I would like to be indifferent. I didn't make this a thing. Somebody else made it a thing. And I'm just like, grown-ass men, stop it. You're acting like it's your Super Sweet 16. It's my day. You're acting like, young brides on their wedding day. It's not your day. It ain't nothing. It ain't nothing but a corporate hustle. It's all right, man. Just be cool. But it's going to happen anyway. And there's a lot of this black man versus black woman things. I just got into another black man versus black woman engagement. And every time I see, there's a long history. When black people are criticizing each other, I think we should give an extreme level of care when we level blanket criticisms. Whether you're saying all black people, all black men, all black women, or black women, black men, black people, black elders, black youth, black history. Anytime you're talking about us, watch your damn mouth. The least you can do is put it all in the proper context and be sensitive, be tactful, and make sure you know what the hell you're talking about. Because in this country, for centuries, it has been part of this culture to reward black people who attack other black people. Whether you attack another black individual or you attack us as a group. And if you wanted to go on and say disparaging things about black people, you will be given a platform. And you could perhaps make a lot of money. If you are laser focused on black people. And so I'm seeing a lot of black men make statements about black women. I'm seeing less of that because these type of dudes are kind of finding me out. But now I'm finding black women are returning the favor. And there's these lot of jabs back and forth. Black men saying what black women need to do, black women saying what black men don't do. And here's the problem in all that black men or black woman back and forth debate about who's bad, who's worse, who's better, who's more nurturing. Here's the bottom line. Black people, all of y'all, on both sides of the game, we can't have healthy, functional, mutually supportive relationships in a pathological society. You're not going to be in a concentration camp. You're not going to be in a gas chamber having fruitful, productive, healthy relationships. It is not possible. Even if you find a woman or a man who is the absolute love of your life, the apple of your eye, there is still a toxic dysfunction embedded. There is a poison pill embedded in all relationships. So the only thing black people can do on an intimate relationship level is work together, is to be a mutual partnership for the overthrow of the oppression of black people. And if that is not the cornerstone of your relationship is toxic. Even if y'all get along, even if y'all don't argue, even if y'all have the happy marriage, or even if y'all didn't have a marriage and you have a wonderful co-parenting situation, or, oh, I loved him, but he's still my brother, he's still my friend, even though we have moved on. Whatever nonsense y'all tell each other. If black people together, whether there's 2 black people in an intimate relationship, it's 10 black people in a business partnership, whether it's 1 million black people living trapped in a community in the hood, no matter what, all black relationships, all black connections that aren't revolutionary are inherently dysfunctional. And the only solution, so black women run around saying black men need to work harder. Black men need better hygiene. Black men need to stop being so violent. Black men need to start fighting for us. Black men need to protect us. Black men need to lead us be independent. Or all these black men walking around where the black woman needs to be more cooperative. The black woman needs to be more supportive. The black woman needs to stop being so sexual. The black woman needs to be more sensual and more open sexually. And saying all this, none of that matters. Whether you're a sensual slave, an assertive slave, a submissive slave, the key phrase here is slave. And until we're liberated, our main goal, the only way to be healthy is if we're fighting together for liberation. Because everything else is an attempt to sustain yourself under oppression, an attempt to cope with, navigate, or even embrace, or even participate in oppression. And all of y'all out here who post those pictures of Jay-Z and Beyonce, butts out on the internet, talking about relationship or goals or mood, their investment, their wealth, their well-being is vested in the oppression of other black people and the destruction of the world's ecosystems. They have their money tied up in everything from foreign sweatshops to the U.S. defense industry. And they will rise with the oppressive system of global white domination, or they will sink with it. Their wealth is rooted in empire and imperialism. And that's your hashtag mood, that's your hashtag goal. As I said before, a poor person who wants to become rich is like an antelope that wants to become a lion. You want to go from being preyed upon to being a predator. There's no benevolent capitalism. So I don't mind having these debates. I don't mind it. I don't mind debating child rearing. I don't mind debating how a black man, how can a black man be a better support and protector of black women? How can black women be a better lover and encourage black men? I don't mind having those debates. And but if you are not having these debates where the ultimate end is saying black women and black men, when we interact with each other, it feeds the revolution. The black women and black men need to structure our intimate, interpersonal, economic, marital, all of our relationships in such a way that is subversive to the status quo. How do we interact in such a way that subverts the status quo? That needs to be the core of all of our relationship discussions and debates. And if it ain't, y'all ain't doing nothing but dancing in circles around the slave shack. And these debates get exhausting. These debates get exhausting. And I never see that. Black men don't raise their kids. So what? If the black men that are raising their kids aren't raising up little African revolutionaries, what are they doing? What's the difference? Because Trayvon Martin had a dutiful father, and he lays bleeding out in the street, just like all the kids who didn't have a dutiful and present father. Trayvon Martin laid out in a gated community, just like the kids in the hood, in the ghetto, in the projects are laid out. The bullets and the oppression and the toxics in the atmosphere are not for fatherless ghetto children only, single mothers only. Do you think getting married and earning, amassing fiat will exempt you from any of the ravages of racism, white domination, and capitalism? Do you think because you're getting a dividends check, you ain't inhaling the pollutants emitted by the same industries that poor people are? I cram to understand this. And I think this should be the core of all these relationship discussions. And maybe I don't understand. I've been in a relationship for almost 20 years. So maybe I'm just too distant from the hustle. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to put the Mac down, how to holler. I don't know what it's like to meet a brand new woman and start a brand new relationship. So maybe it's something I don't understand, but I know that when I was out there sniffing and hunting and hollering and kicking it, I just know that the core of my motivations for a relationship is I need an ally in the struggle. And if we can't be allies first, we can't be nothing seconds. We can't be lovers. We can't be girlfriend and boyfriends. We can't even be homies. If we ain't allies in the struggle, then it can't be. That's what I'm building on. In all relationships, but especially familial relationships. But it's just exhausting seeing all this black men don't, black women do, black men should need to, black women shouldn't. It just seems like a whole bunch of nonsense, because even if we did all of that, what would it really change? I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. What would it change? You know, and I did a show because for some reason, people just started asking me about Marx's analysis. Dialectical and historical materialism. So I did a show on dialectical and historical materialism. And if we look at it from a Marxist perspective, and I know, we ain't worried about Marx. Marx is a white man. Listen, white folks set all this up. We built it, but they designed it. We built it according to their specifications. You know what I'm saying? So you can't ignore it. This is built according to their mentality, their culture, their worldview, their social theories. And you can't claim to overthrow them or to escape them, and you don't even know what they are. That's why so many African people that quote unquote hate the white man, the white devils, go and create their own little corner of Afrocentric whiteness. Just look at all of these ideologies, all of these organizations, all of these demagogic individuals who claim the white man is the devil. And look at just how Western, how puritanical, how Eurocentric, how Greco-Roman, how Plutonic. Look how much Western philosophy, Western ideology, Western modes and models are embedded in all of these so-called Afrocentric or anti-white bodies, organizations, ideologies. So it frightens me when so-called Afrocentrics, militants, revolutionaries say, I ain't studying Marx. I ain't studying Adam Smith. I don't want to hear nothing from no white person. So you out here doing this and you don't even recognize what I'm doing is creating a Eurocentric, Western, Greco-Roman, hierarchical, patriarchal structure. No, I ain't. This is African. You don't know what African is. You don't know what European is. You're just making it up as you go along. So as Marx said, materialism, the material resources are the engine of society, culture, of human reality, of thought and philosophy. So you have to affect the fundamental, raw, natural resources that a society is based upon in order to affect its culture, affect its politics, to affect the status quo. So all the black love is revolution. Black love is not revolutionary. Sorry. Black families are not the foundation of a nation. Sorry. I ain't saying don't love each other and don't have families. I'm saying don't distort what they are, because you hurt them when you distort what they are. And I have to go over this, and then I'll get to Trump and North Korea. But I'm a vegan, and I promote veganism. But if I go around to a person that had type 2 diabetes and has both of their feet amputated, and I say to them, you adopt a vegan diet and you can regrow limbs. And there are people out here saying that human beings, if they detoxify and eat enough intensive nutrients, they can regrow severed limbs like reptiles. So if I give you a false number, now I think even if you are morbidly obese with type 2 diabetes and got a foot amputated, adopting a vegan diet will help you in several ways, but it won't regrow your foot. But if I tell somebody and somebody becomes a vegan and says, if I become a vegan so I can regrow my foot, and I've been vegan for 10 years, 15 years, I've done everything and my foot hasn't grown back, then I am hurting the vegan cause by distorting what it can give to you. So when we go around to each other and we say, the black family, if we have strong black families, we'll have a nation. Black love is power. It's powerful. And I've been in black love and I got me a black family. And to be honest with you, I have no more status and power in this system than I did before I had one. And in fact, I have more vulnerabilities to this system because I got 2 sons that I'm responsible for. I got a son who's 15 years old, but he's like what, 6'3", 6'4", with long dreadlocks past his shoulder. And so I used to be able to dwell in the world, but I didn't give a damn about nothing. And so just the other day, I'm telling my son, you can't wear that outfit. That's all black. You look like you a banger. You look like a roller. Go put on some colors. Go change that outfit. He don't know. I'm like, you look like you repping for folks, man. You can't wear that outfit. Or even worse than repping for folks, you look like some emo brat. So in fact, we tell black folks having a family will increase your vulnerability, will increase your vulnerability to the system, because now you ain't just responsible for keeping yourself out of the clutches of the system, keeping yourself from being, brutalized by the state or being preyed upon by Uncle Toms. But now you got a woman and children you got to also defend. But it's a noble effort. It is a necessary effort. It is an asset to the community and to the people for us to build family, but it's not the foundation to the nation. I've been with my wife. We coming up on our, 18th year together? 19th year together. And we ain't no closer to a nation. And we followed all the family rules. Stop lying about what these things will do or won't do for us as a people. Now, extol the benefits, promote the benefits of having a partner, of cooperation, of having intimate and emotional support and outlets. Promote that, but don't lie. And me and my wife been engaged in politics and organizing from day one. But ain't nothing in there. We ain't got to lie, Craig. We ain't got to fictionalize. So that's all. We just got to be honest about the benefits and the flaws. And please, for me, any of these brothers out here talking about Father's Day, I'm getting on topic. Chill. For Father's Day. Call it St. Joseph Day. Happy St. Joseph Day to all the fathers this coming Sunday. And you tell me how Afrocentric you are. One more thing, and then we're on to Trump. This is from News One. Women and girls disappearing on the west side of Chicago on March 16th. Anna Stanlachowicz, who was 18, went missing and has not been seen since. On April 25th, 15-year-old Sandria Davis vanished after leaving her East Garfield Park neighborhood in Chicago. On May 11th, Davis's body was found 6 blocks away from East Garfield Park at a vacant apartment. On May 25th, Shantia Smith, 26, went missing and has not been seen since. Now another girl has disappeared, 15-year-old Victoria Garnett, on June 5th. So between April 16th and June 5th, there have been several young ladies missing. And there are even some other missing women that they have not tied to this case, but not to be alarmist. They believe that on the west side, southwest side, and the south side of Chicago, that there is a serial killer operating, targeting women in their 20s and teens. The youngest victims are 18. The oldest victim was 26. So be cautious. If you live on the south side of Chicago or on the west side, far west side also, Garfield Park area, be very cautious. Buddy up. Be mindful of your surroundings. This is very serious. And then there are people putting out false reports that when they find the bodies have the organs removed or something which have not been proven to be true, that the bodies are removed. But there is evidence of assault, sexual and physical assault. But there's no, the rumors about the organs, the internal organs being removed have not been founded. I'm not saying, they haven't been confirmed that that's true. But they found some of the body of Davis. And the families are making appeals, but keep your eyes out for brothers and sisters on the west side. When you're out and about, when you would normally just think that you could travel safely on your own, they don't have vehicles, they don't have a description. All they have is a cluster of women on the west side of Chicago, Garfield Park neighborhood, East Garfield Park. A cluster of women have come up missing, and a couple of bodies have been found. Several women have come up missing. And that doesn't mean if you're not on the Garfield Park area or west side, that does not mean that you're safe, because also these type of individuals, these serial killers, they do move around. Once this area gets too hot or gets too much media attention, they don't like to travel far from their core. But all I'm saying is, sisters, if you have to go out, like I said, he targets women between their 20s and teens, mid-teens to late 20s. Make sure people know where you are. Make sure, if you can, get someone to accompany you. Most of the women, based on the article from News One, you can go to News One, Missing Chicago Women, at the News One news site, and they have several articles linked to this. And this started on March 16th. And like I said, there's literally nothing. Usually they'll tell you there's a vehicle you can watch for, a van, or have some type of description of the body. There's no information. This is a relatively new issue starting on March 16th. So please be careful, and please look out for each other. This is a community alert. So now let's move on. I'm just going to skate right through the musical break because Trump pulled a coup d'état. I posted yesterday, and I say this all the time. I quote Dale Jones: "The white man is more dangerous at the negotiating table than he is on the battlefield." There have been more people to sit down and negotiate their rights than have their people snatched away at the point of a gun. If you look at like Vietnam, the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, Ho Chi Minh and General Nap beat the hell out of the U.S. military. They won the war, but they lost the peace. And that's something that I think non-Western people have not figured out yet. What peace really means. We think when a white man sits across from our table, us on the table, and says, "Hey, I want peace." In Western context, they even admit it. Peace is a time to regroup and prepare for war. Or what Dale Jones would say, they loosen up to get a tighter grip. So you ever see somebody putting on gloves and they clench their fist and open their fist and clench their fist and open their fist as they pull the glove on, so they expand and contract their hands to get a more snug fit? That's what Western imperialism does. It'll often loosen up to get a tighter grip. They'll give black people civil rights. They'll give black folks a holiday. They'll give black folks concessions on prison reform, education reform, school desegregation, public accommodation resegregation. And we're like, wow, look at all they've done. They loosened up on us. Affirmative action reforms. We got a black Supreme Court justice. We even had a black president. And as they loosen up, the next thing we turn around, all the stats, from infant mortality to incarceration to education, all the stats are going in the wrong direction. As the society large, that's called loosening up to get a tighter grip. And Dale Jones, the war correspondent, all he did, well, he did a lot, but one of the things he was obsessed with was conflict, war correspondence. He would study conflicts, and he would study the negotiations leading up to conflicts and negotiations that were supposed to resolve conflicts. You know, he was also a musicologist. But one thing he was is he studied conflicts. And his book, 9/11 for Blacks Only, Culture Bandits Volume 2, not Volume 1. Volume 1 deals with culture. Volume 2 deals with politics and history. And Culture Bandits Volume 3, Invasion of the Body Snatcher. And what's so obscene about this reality of white, non-lethal, non-violent warfare called negotiation and diplomacy is we ain't figured it out yet. We still falling for the okie doke. This time last year, Trump was saying that he would bomb North Korea back to the Stone Age, that he would wipe North Korea from the map. Now, y'all don't want to admit it, but 90% of the people in the United States didn't think nothing of North Korea. North Korea was ginned up under the Bush administration because the Bush created this thing called the Axis of Evil. And in his Axis of Evil, he said that Iran, Iraq, Syria, North Korea, and Cuba were all working together to destroy the free world, to destroy the democratic states. Utter nonsense. Everyone outside the United States laughed historically. But American, being the indoctrinated idiots, the mass indoctrinated idiots that we all are, we're like shuddering in our beds, thinking, oh, sickly Fidel, Kim Jong-un, and all the rest of these dictators, the Ayatollah, people who didn't think nothing about us. We're going to come get us, going to get us in our bed. Saddam Hussein, remember him? They were all hiding under our beds, waiting to slit our throats. Idiotic. But then after the Axis of Evil and all that dissipated, and the United States embarked on the War on Terror, an orgy of mass murder across the globe that was sparked by the Bush administration and ramped up by the Obama administration. Y'all wasn't thinking nothing about North Korea. And it was almost exactly a year ago, because I was working with the Green Teams, and I was working at Little Black Pearl Charter School, and I was working at DuSable High School, public high school. And I'd walk in there with my packet of seeds and my lesson plan for the day to talk about photosynthesis, you know, to talk about composting and alkalizing soil. And all those young people wanted to talk about was North Korea is going to kill us. Why do North Koreans want to bomb us? And I'm like, what? I don't listen to corporate news. Oh, the North Koreans, they're going to kill us. They're crazy over there. So in the DuSable High School, they had a map. They would just give me a classroom. They would stick me wherever they could fit me for the Green Team, because it was an after-school program. And so I was in the Spanish classroom, and they had a world map. And I said to the young people, show me on this world map, show me North Korea. Not one of them could find it. And I'm like, okay, go up to the map and read it. And so they searched this map and searched this map, and they're expecting to find like the Soviet Union, some big, massive, overwhelming nation. And so one of the young people finds, like, here it is. This is Korea. I said, that's South Korea. And they looked and said, oh, this is North Korea? And I said, yes. And they were like, this little country? I said, yes. It's like, it's so tiny. I'm like, yes, it is. It could literally fit into the United States 100 times. I don't know. Don't check me on that. But it's a blip. It's a blip. And they're like, it's not even the whole Korea. The Korean peninsula is cut in half between the North and the South. And they just couldn't believe this little nation could threaten great big United States. Just the visuals of it. The first thing you do, just look at the visual. Just take a step back and look at it. And so then I had to explain to them, North Korea has never bombed another nation in its entire history. Has never invaded another nation in its entire history. North Korea was attacked by the United States because North Korea decided amongst other North Koreans that they wanted to adopt a communist model of development. That they wanted state ownership and they wanted a planned economy, that they reject the central banking system and they reject opening their market to foreign investment. And they do not want private companies holding on to public resources and disseminating and controlling public resources. They want it to be socialistic and communistic in their economic and political structures. And that was enough, because in that era, Dwight D. Eisenhower had this containment philosophy. And the containment philosophy said, we will not let another sovereign nation on the face of this earth turn to communism. They lost the Soviet Union, they lost Poland, they lost Ukraine. And then, look, these are white people in America talking about we lost. That would be like me sitting in my house and you drive a Cadillac and then you decide, I'm going to take my Cadillac and drive it, to California. And I'm like, oh no, I lost that Cadillac. It's not my car. It doesn't belong to me. I have no connections to that car. Why the hell am I talking about I lost the Cadillac when you drove it to California? And then I say, I got to stop him from driving my Cadillac to California. Like, did you pay for the car? No. Do you have a deed to the car? No. Did this person agree to allow you to share the car? No. But it's under my sphere of influence. I feel in my heart that I should have a right to set some standards. I don't think he should be able to drive. He can drive as far as Colorado, but no further. That's the standard I set for him in his car. And so you say, to hell with you, it's my car. You got nothing to do with this. You deal with your business. Leave me alone to drive my car where I want. And so you get in your car, and the moment you drive past Colorado, I blow your car up. And then I say, you're a threat to me because you are doing something with your property that I don't think you should do. That's how it is. So when the United States in the 1950s, in the post-World War II era, was like, we're losing these countries. What the hell does that mean? And this is the language that they would use. And they said, we're not going to lose Vietnam. We lost Cuba. We're not going to lose Jamaica. Remember, Jamaica wanted to be socialist. Panama wanted to be socialist. Nicaragua wanted to be socialist. The Congo wanted to be socialist. Look at the world map. We forget about the Cold War. I mean, the people in the United, y'all done already forgot. Y'all celebrating the Washington Capitals. Y'all done forgot about the Warriors. Y'all got some short memories, which makes you very vulnerable to mass manipulation. History is never in the past. Dr. Clark said history is never in the past. History is the fundamental building block of reality. If you don't know the history of something, you don't know that thing. If you don't know, you can know everything about me today. But if you don't know where I came from, how I came up, you don't know me. So you got to know this history. So the United States invaded North Korea. No, it wasn't North Korea at the time. It was actually called Korea. And Korea, all of its existence had been invaded and or occupied by foreign powers. China, Japan. The Japanese had committed multiple massacres, multiple atrocities, and invaded multiple times. So the Koreans after World War II looked around and said, wow, Europe is giving up its colonies in Africa and India. The United States says that that's it, colonization is over. And the United States went to the British Empire and said, it's done. We're not doing this anymore. No more protectorates, no more colonies. So colonization was at its end, and it would be a free and democratic world. The good guys won the war. The bad guys lost. The evil Nazis, the Axis, Nazi, fascists lost. And the democratic, capitalist, righteous, freedom-loving, Yankee Doodle Dandy, Western Europe, and America won. So it was the good guys won. So it's time for what they call the peace dividend. And the peace dividend was all the resources that went to warfare, all the inputs that went to warfare could now be invested in education, healthcare, humane technologies, foreign aid. Because we made all those sacrifices for the war, it's time to reap the benefits of those sacrifices, to reap what we saw. That was the myth. That was the media back in the 1940s and 50s. And expansion of the middle class, the New Deal, the world had just come out of a Great Recession and just won another world war for the good guys. It was all gravy. And so Africans and Asians and Polynesians, East Indians, even Native Americans thought, wow, really? But they didn't say everybody get free except y'all niggas and y'all chinks and y'all sand niggas. They didn't know they weren't part. We actually fell for that rhetoric. We actually thought that applied to everybody. We really believed it was a new day. So the Koreans felt, let's sit down. We had been under occupation from the Chinese and traded off, and the Chinese and everybody's on our territory, violating our sovereignty. Now we're free, independent people. So what do we want to do? How do we want to structure our own nation and erect our own flag and function according to our own standards? And unfortunately, just like the Palestinians, when they legally elected a Hamas government and got attacked by democratic states, freedom-loving democratic democracies, for exercising their democratic sovereignty, North Koreans had been attacked for the same thing. And they looked at Adam Smith and Wealth of Nations. They looked at the capitalist nations, and they understood. Everybody outside the United States understood that the United States did not defeat Hitler. The United States did not defeat the fascists. The United States did not defeat the empire of Japan. In fact, the United States and its market principles, its ideology of supremacism is what gave birth to the Nazis. The Nazis were reproducing and duplicating what the United States did. The fascist Mussolini was duplicating. He said fascism should be called corporatism. And where did corporatism, limited liability come from? Western Europe and the United States. And so the North Koreans intelligently said the very people who are out here telling us that we're free were the ones who created these atrocities that we endured under World War II. And it was the communists who fought the longest and the hardest. And it was the communists who defeated the Nazis, who defeated our tormentors, the Eastern Japanese, the Eastern Empire. So we're going to link with our true liberators, our true allies against fascism and genocide. And they decided we will make formal political, economic, and cultural ties with the Soviet Union, and we will join the Union of Soviets, and we will establish a communist dictatorship of the proletariat. And the people of the West, the elites of the West, the central bankers and the militarists of the West were like, if we allow people to make a free and independent choice, more people are going to choose communism or socialism over capitalism. If people actually get an opportunity to actually look at the merits of both of these systems and make a free and independent choice, we're going to lose. And soon the whole damn world will go communist. And so what did they say? We're going to invade Korea and we're going to stop the communists. Same thing that we invaded Vietnam to stop communism. We funded the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. They funded juntas. They don't use that word anymore. They funded juntas and right-wing guerrilla factions. They funded assassinations of Patrice Lumumba. They went all over the world engaging in economic hitmen. They would either try to subvert the economy. If they couldn't subvert the economy, they'd send in economic hitmen to disrupt socialist and communist economies. If that didn't work, they send in the jackals. And the jackals would implement sabotage, assassinating leaders, blowing up infrastructure. And if that didn't work, they send in the Marines. They didn't have to invade the Congo because the economic hitmen failed. They sent in the jackals, and the jackals succeeded. But in Korea, in Vietnam, in other regions, in Iran, Iraq, the jackals, the hitmen failed, the economic hitmen failed, the jackals failed, so they had to send in the Marines. As I tell you, you got black children in the year 2016, 2017, running around saying the Koreans are going to kill us. The Koreans want to bomb us. When the Koreans have not only never bombed the United States, they never bombed another country. Right now, the U.S. has military forces in over over 2,000 military bases. There are only about less than 200 countries on the whole planet. The U.S. has troops stationed on the continent of Africa, has bases on Africa, has bases all over Europe. They still got the World War II military bases in Germany are still there. They got a huge base in Okinawa. The U.S. military is all over the world. Can you imagine getting up, walking out of your house, out of your condo, out of your apartment, if you're homeless, crawling out of your tent, and you see a foreign soldier with a machine gun and a foreign flag on his shoulder, walking down your streets in your neighborhood? You think seeing the damn police is bad. But the cops speak the same language. At least. Can you imagine what that's like? Can you imagine getting in the car to take your family out to barbecue some dead animal carcass in the park, and you got to drive past a huge military base that's flying the flag of China, the flag of Cuba, the flag of Iran, and there's a huge Iranian military base, and they're landing jet planes, and they're testing ammunitions on your soil? Can you imagine what that's like? No, you can't, because there are no foreign military bases. I grew up in Missouri, on the Kansas-Missouri border, and many times I have been to the Fort Leavenworth base. And it's unsettling. Being a U.S. citizen, even living in proximity to a U.S. military base. But I can imagine it being even more unsettling if it was a Russian military base. But people all over the world outside the United States have to put up with this BS. But we think that we're like everywhere Trump gets in front of a camera and says, we're being treated so unfairly. We're under attack. And I don't mind Trump saying that. He's a pathological liar. But the fact that people swallow that, the fact that he's not laughed at every time. China's treating us so unfairly. The Koreans are threatening us. You know, I'm like, how can you organize a society full of people that damn stupid to believe such an obvious, blatant lie? It scares me. It makes me think, wow, these people can't be liberated. Illiterate peasants of the third world have proven to have better cognitive abilities than the most educated citizens of the United States. At least they have to oppress them using direct threats. They have to put machine guns to their head and say, hey, chill. You U.S. citizens, you don't have to do anything. They don't even censor books. They don't censor news. The information is out there because they know you're not going to access the information. If you're engaged with any type of media, the moment you hear something that makes you uncomfortable, you tune out. So anyway, North Korea, never having any evidence that it has had any intent to do anything except govern its own people and control its own territory, gets invaded and literally bombed to the Stone Age. An international war crime. And they fought and mass slaughtered these people for no other reason than the people saying, we want to govern our people our way. We want to control our territory our way. And the United States attacks North Korea, and now today the United States is under threat from North Korea. How? They say North Korea is a state sponsor of terrorism. How many nations has North Korea overthrown? How many nations has North Korea invaded? How many foreign leaders has North Korea assassinated? 0 in over 70 years. Do I need to list how many nations the United States has overthrown in 70 years? How many foreign leaders they have toppled in the last 70 years? How many foreign territories they have bombed in 70 years? How many nations that have U.S. boots on their soil in the last 70 years? Who is the attacker? And I'm not a fan of North Korea. I know it's a despot. I know, but here's the thing about dictatorships. Anytime an individual, a community, or a nation is under perpetual siege, it becomes regressive. That is just the way it is. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's North Korea. I don't care if it's Haiti. I don't care if it's a theocratic nation or a secular nation. Any nation that is under foreign external siege, it becomes internally repressive. You could be in the most stable, loving household in the world, and I pick up your house and put it in the middle of a gang-infested, drug-infested, deprived, under-resourced, poor school neighborhood. And I guarantee you, within a month, you and your wife will be at each other's throats. And someone in that house, whether it's the wife or the husband, will start acting like a petty dictator. What we all need to do and get in this house. It is the natural way. That is called the siege mentality. Even your hormonal, your blood. I could do a blood test. Take people from a high stress situation. Their levels of aggressive hormones, adrenal hormones, C-reactive protein in their blood increases. Their serotonin and dopamine levels go down. They're in a hyper agitated state. And even a pregnant woman that has high levels of stress hormones during her pregnancy will produce a baby that is more irritable, more sensitive to light and noises, and agitated, angry babies. So the U.S. puts these nations under constant military siege, under constant nuclear threat. And then the nation descends into despotism and dictatorship. And then, oh, look, they don't love freedom like we do. Find me a nation that was under perpetual attack, under perpetual atrocities, under siege, that did not develop what has been called the siege mentality. They're creating a siege mentality in the United States, but it's an artificial siege mentality. They lie to us and tell us we're under attack. Iran does not want to attack us. Iraq did not attack us. The Panamanian, remember we invaded Panama. Remember, George W. Bush invaded Panama because the media was saying he was a wimp. And whenever the media goes on, they're like, oh, what about the wimp factor? You know, Reagan had some good wars. And Bush was like, man, I've been in office almost 4 years. I haven't had a good war. I haven't had a good dust up to show the people. And they say he was a wimp because George W. Bush, he was a spy. He was head of the CIA, and he was a scholarly man. He was a Princeton. He was a New England elite. His father was a gangster, or his grandfather was a gangster, but he was a man of dignity. And so people are like, we like cowboys. We want John Wayne to be our president. We don't want some scholarly president. We don't want some competent administrator. So he sent his army down to Panama and killed, and using experimental weapons to kill people with lasers and drones. Small little Panamanian. And it's like Dr. Clark said, most of these nations that the United States invades could be taken over by a well-organized Boy Scout troop. They always going after, they bully. They go after nations only after they know they can defeat them. So the history is, the United States illegally invaded North Korea with no cause, bombed their nation into utter despair, split the nation in half between South Korea and North Korea. Then they artificially floated and inflated North Korea to juxtapose it against South Korea, to juxtapose it. And for many years, South Korea was a brutal dictatorship too. But they don't tell you about that. All you know about South Korea is Gundam style. But for many years, South Korea was a brutal dictatorship, not a democracy, not a free market capitalist nation, but a repressive dictatorial capitalist nation that was ripe for the pickings. And yeah, they got some rewards. Here's some skyscrapers, and you can have an oligarchical elite preside over the huddled masses. They lost their culture right now, but they have what they call this alienation. Right now, the plastic surgery capital of the world outside of Brazil is North Korea. The North Koreans have the highest rate of plastic surgery in all of Asia. And what type of procedures do they get? Skin bleaching. They get this special surgery to widen and open up their eyes so that they don't have the typical Asian phenotype, but they have a more Western round eye appearance. They have this other thing where they kill the major nerve that feeds the calf muscles so that they can get skinny white girl legs as they perceive it. You look at North Korea, they have lost their culture. It is a husk of consumerism, of Marxist alienation. It is a laboratory of unfettered capitalism, what it does to the mentality and the culture of the people. But hey, well, the Gundam style, it's all a big party over there, a big joke. But they got big multinational corporations. Their stock market is booming. Who cares if the average Korean is miserable? They got literally bunkers, and they got like little cubicles. They have these housing for their people where there's nothing but a small box that you can barely fit a twin bed into. And millions of people live in destitution. Well, all we see are the big lights of the big city. It's a hustle. Capitalism generates poverty and concentrates wealth. Concentrate wealth creates poverty. Just like if I went around the world and concentrated all the food in the hands of a few people, then everyone else would starve. That's what capitalism does with resources. It keeps all the wealth and resources in the hands of a few. More money they could ever spend, more food than they could ever eat, and leaves the rest of the people. Mass accumulation. Capitalism does not create wealth. That is another myth that doesn't hold up to any level of scrutiny. That's why they have to bomb people that say, I want to examine this capitalism thing. I want to really look into it and see if it'll work for my nation. Yeah, it'll work. Take my word for it. But I'd rather study it. Okay, you want to get bombed? Accept capitalism or get the bomb. Where did the communists go and bomb people to become communists? And again, the Soviet Union had to develop the siege mentality. There's a lot of history here, but just understand. North Korea is not the aggressor. North Korea has never attacked the United States. North Korea has never threatened the United States. From day one, for the last 70 years, North Korea said, you invaded my nation and you will not sign a peace treaty. North Korea said, sign a damn peace treaty. Let's end this conflict. You attacked me and now you reserve the right to attack me in perpetuity. And North Korea said, anytime the United States is ready, we will sit down and sign a peace treaty. And everybody's like, look what Trump has done. Trump has saved the world from nuclear extinction. That's a damn lie. And Trump wasn't the first president. Going all the way back to Eisenhower. Even Jimmy Carter, the one-term Democratic president, the peanut farmer president. You know, a president I have halfway respect. Tried to negotiate a peace deal with Kim Il-sung. And Kim Il-sung was like, yeah, you know, I will denuclearize, I will shut down the centrifuges, all of that. And Carter said, if you shut down the centrifuges, I'm going to withdraw U.S. troops. I'm going to bring many of the troops home, and I'm going to withdraw many of the other troops from the 51st parallel. I'm going to bring them out of the demilitarized zone, and I will allow for direct negotiations between the administration of South Korea and North Korea, and y'all can hash out your own issues in your own land. And Kim Il-sung, the grandfather of Kim Jong-un, said, let's get it on. And the Pentagon went to Jimmy Carter and said, if you do this, we're gonna Kennedy your ass. And the Pentagon stopped it. And why did they stop it? Because when Trump just announced, hey, we're going to stop these military war games off the coast of North Korea, guess what happened? Military stocks, boom. All of your favorite artists lost some money yesterday. And today, they're still losing. Jay-Z, Kendrick Lamar, all these positive artists, all these wealthy black people, all these positive black people we aspire to be that got money tied up in Bechtel, in GE, in Boeing, who got stocks, and Jay-Z telling us to buy stocks. They're losing money today because they make profit off of warfare. Even the illusion of peace causes the stock market to fall. So the Pentagon opposed Jimmy Carter's plan with North Korea. And Jimmy Carter was like, I'm not going to go have no big ceremony. I'm not going to go have a photo op. Let's sit down and do some real diplomacy. And then President Bill Clinton. 1993, 2001, he had a framework for Pyongyang to lift the sanctions in agreement. He said that we will lift sanctions, allow for some trade and investment, if you agree to stop your nuclear proliferation, to stop testing missiles. And Pyongyang was like, cool. And let's do this. And then as we proceed, let's sign a standing peace non-aggression pact. That's formally in the Korean War, because the Korean War to this day, right now, this second, is still not ended. There has been no armistice. There has been no declaration of peace. The declaration of war still stands. There are still troops at the ready. 30, 40, 50,000 U.S. troops on the ready. Triggers, fingers ready to invade North Korea. There are still multiple missiles, gunships trained on North Korea at this moment. Y'all see that ceremony don't mean diddly squat. But Bill Clinton said, let's have a path towards peace. And it was going. And North Korea, just like the Native Americans, even though Native Americans couldn't read English, couldn't write English, and didn't understand English, every single treaty that the Native nations, First Nations, Native American recognized nations in the United States, every single treaty that they signed with the United States government was violated by the United States government. And the natives couldn't even read the language, but they managed to hold to the treaty. Every single signed agreement between the United States government and the North Korean, the People's Republic of North Korea, the U.S. violated it, and the U.S. subverted it. Bill Clinton had a standing agreement with, who was the other? Kim Jong-il. Because Kim Il-sung was the first great leader, and then Kim Jong-il, and now Kim Jong. With Kim Jong, the father of Kim Jong-un, Bill Clinton got an agreement with him in 1993. And that lasted all the way up to 2001 because when Bush got elected, he put North Korea on the axis of evil and accused them of being a state sponsor of terrorism for doing trade with nations that commit acts of terror. Now, the United States is not a state sponsor of terrorism, even though the CIA, the NSA commit terroristic acts all over the world all the time, but the United States doesn't sponsor terrorism, it sponsors police actions. So that was blown up. So every time and then when Obama was running for president in 2008 and 2007, during the 2007 campaign, Obama was asked about the axis of evil and America's enemy. And he said, I'd be willing to talk to Ahmadinejad, who is over Iran. I'd be willing to talk to Kim Jong-un. I'd be willing to talk to America's enemies because, and Obama said, which is a very stately thing to say, he said, the enemies are the ones you need to talk to. You don't need to really talk to your allies. You don't need to have diplomacy with people you agree with. Your diplomacy was created to help you engage the people you don't agree with. So yes, I'm willing to talk to Ahmadinejad. I'm willing to negotiate with Kim Jong-un. I'm willing to, be a freaking president and handle my foreign policy responsibilities. And he was slaughtered in the media. You go to my blog. I'm going to post today the response that Obama got for even suggesting that he might negotiate. Not because the only president, Kim Jong-il, actually met with Bill Clinton. But Bill Clinton said, I'm not coming over there until I get out of office. And when I get over there, he went and got some prisoners. But he said, I'm not going to have a formal meeting. I'm not going to have a state meeting. I'm not going to give you legitimacy, woody, woody, woo, until we get some solid agreements. And so they said that Obama was a socialist, Maoist, who's bent on the destruction of America, who's going to talk to America's enemies and make agreements with America's enemies for the destruction of America. Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Alex Jones, all these clowns, and I don't know why black folks is listening to these creepy crackers. So there's a history that predates Trump of U.S. executives, mostly Democrats, who have tried to negotiate a reduction in hostilities and peace with North Korea, and the Republicans have historically blew it up, or the Pentagon has historically blew it up, and military weapons contractors have historically blew it up. So here comes Trump clause, here comes Trump clause, right down Trump clause lane. Trump comes and says, I'm going to save the world from nuclear attack. A year after provoking an attack. Now, everybody says, North Korea is testing missiles. Guess what? The United States tests missiles every single day. In fact, the United States had an entire island off the coast of, it's called Vieques, a Puerto Rican island. They took an entire island for nothing but to test missiles. How come they don't report on U.S. missiles testing? France was doing nuclear weapons testing, illegal nuclear weapons testing, after it signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Act. Was that in the newspaper? France was doing illegal underwater nuclear bomb testing. The Great Britain tests missiles. India and Pakistan both illegally obtained nuclear weapons, and they both test nuclear and non-nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles right now. You name a nation that doesn't test missiles. China, Russia, Australia, Great Britain, Germany, France, United States, Canada, all engage in routine, regular missile testing that they never show on the freaking news. They never highlight. And they have failed mission tests. Not only do they test missiles, they test drones. They test chemical and biological weapons. But the only place you think that tests missiles on the whole entire earth is North Korea. North Korea had another missile test. North Korea had a missile test. When's the last time? Somebody find for me. Now you can go to the Pentagon website. Sometimes the Pentagon will issue local warnings saying that we're having maneuvers in the area, we're having because I remember growing up not too far from Fort Leavenworth in Kansas, which is a huge monstrosity of a military base. And it's also a huge military prison there. They've had a lot of famous criminals. I actually had been to Fort Leavenworth when I was an X-ray tech to do diagnostic services for the contract health services at Fort Leavenworth, and Correction Corps of America, a private prison that was close to the. But anyway, they will issue local warnings saying we're having maneuvers or we're testing weapons. Be not alarmed, but it never makes the headlines. Now, every now and then, some experimental stealth bomber type plane will crash off the coast of Virginia, and they'll report on that. Oh, there was 4 military servicemen died in an accidental crash, but they don't say they were testing weapons. And we fall for the okie doke. And I don't even mind people being stupid, but do you got to be so arrogant in your stupidity? I don't understand it. So everybody gets upset when North Korea tests weapons. But nobody gets upset when India tests weapons, and India is a nuclear power. How come the world is not upset? India got nuclear weapons in the early 90s under the Clinton administration. And India and Pakistan are right now fighting over a territory in Kashmir. And Indian and Pakistani troops regularly shoot at each other. In Southeast Asia, the second most population dense place in the world, billions of people are living under a direct 2 nuclear armed states that are currently shooting at each other across borders, that are fighting over conflicted territory right now, and they both have nuclear arms aimed at each other. And their nuclear arms and nuclear programs are far more advanced than Iran or North Korea. And nobody says a peep about it. Indian and Pakistani nuclear bombs are a greater threat to stability, to peace, to the environment, and the United States than North Korea's actual bombs or Iran's imagined bombs. But you don't hear a damn thing about it, because this ain't about nuclear bombs. This ain't about new weapons testing. What the hell is it about? And because we're not critical thinkers, we see flags, we see bands playing, we see camera flashes, and these 2 men, these 2 funny looking dudes standing up here talking about, I just saved the world. Trump just saved the world from himself. Because Trump was the one who kicked all this mess up last year, saying he's going to bomb Little Rocket Man, and had all of y'all spooked. And what frightens me is not Trump, but our vulnerability to these weak-ass superficial manipulation. Trump is warping reality around you. Trump, he goes and provokes a conflict, stirs up a conflict, and then ends the conflict. That is the Hegelian dialectic. You create a false problem, and then you give a false solution, and then you pretend like you're the savior. That is the oldest hustle in the book. And it is a big-ass distraction. Trump is a criminal. He is openly corrupt, openly taking bribes, openly subverting what few good policies are left in the government, from housing to environmental protection to education funding. He's blowing it all up, but he's promoting himself as a savior of humanity. North Korea was one of the final holdouts from the PNAC, Project for a New American Century. The Project from a New American Century says everybody has to get aligned with Western capitalism. Everybody has to come into the fold, has to align their economy and their political system with the Western domination, the unipolar world. Ain't no more communists, ain't no more socialists, ain't no more democratic socialists, ain't no more anti-corporatists. We're breaking down all the barriers. Every nation will have to function as though they are America, or under the protection of America, or a satellite of the U.S. economy. Come in, get your IMF, get loans, get your World Bank loans, get in tune with the World Trade Organizations, all these international bodies. Remember, they were running around back in the early 2000s talking about the New World Order, one world government. And they were telling us that the Chinese were going to be the one world government. It ain't one world government, it's one world corporation. It's one world banking. It ain't a government that's ruling the world. It's multinational corporation, private interests, sovereign wealth funds that are ruling the world. And the nations of Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, Syria, Somalia, Cuba, Libya, and North Korea were the holdouts. Out of 200 nations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 nations were saying, listen, we're not done. We're not taking these IMF loans. We're not taking these World Bank loans. We're not signing on to General Agreement on Tariffs. We're not doing these international trade agreements. We're not allowing Apple, Disney, Walmart to come in and rape our resources, to enslave our people in sweatshops and extract resources. We're not with that. So these are all the nations that are so evil. These are all the nations with no freedom. They want, and everybody's even now. What about North Korean human rights abuses? What about Saudi Arabia's human rights abuses? The number one human rights abuser right now in the world, openly on the world stage, is Israel. What about Israel's human rights abuses? And Israel, unlike North Korea, is bombing foreign nations. Israel has nuclear weapons and has threatened other nations with nuclear annihilation, unlike North Korea. Saudi Arabia, another ally, is literally beheading people. They literally have a medieval 15th century judicial system where they're chopping off hands and chopping off limbs and publicly humiliating and torturing people for minor violations. And everybody's celebrating Saudi Arabia because just 3 days ago they allowed women to drive. And just because, just like school desegregation, you can put whatever you want on those books. Those husbands, no good Saudi Arabian man is going to have his wife caught dead driving a car. I don't care what the government says. My wife will not be driving. But good for them. So the world is warped. The world is warped. Because the attackers are looked at as victims, the warmongers are looked at as the peace creators, the victims of Western aggressions are seen as the threat to the world peace. And all of us, so many of us, too many of us are falling for this okie-doke. Now, why is Trump doing this? Trump needs a win. You'll realize that at the moment, Nixon, they were getting closer to Nixon. They were really closing in on Nixon. So Nixon became the most progressive president in history. Nixon gave us the Environmental Protection Agency. Nixon went to China, the first U.S. president to ever go to communist China, and met with a communist dictator and helped to bring peace between America and its long-standing enemy, the communist Chinese. And then he came back to America and gave us all these progressive policies. In his later stages of his presidency, Nixon was more progressive than Obama ever was. Nixon actually feared the people, so he spoke to the needs of the people. When the people made a demand, Nixon would at least consider it and not fully respond to it. So Trump now wants to pardon everybody he can get his hands on, and he's making peace. This is the Nixonian hustle ran all again. So Nixon got on that helicopter, oh, you won't have me kick around anymore, and throws up his hands in the peace symbol. A mass murdering warmonger. And at the same time, he was making peace in China. He was having mass bombing, illegal war crimes, bombing raids in Cambodia and Vietnam. At the same time, Trump is making peace in North Korea. He's not only sanctioning the mass slaughter of Palestinians by Israel, he's also considering putting allowing the U.S. to directly, instead of playing as a support, but directly invading the international war atrocity in Yemen. And he wants the U.S. to lock arms with the Saudi Arabian military, or the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's a monarchy. You talk about America being pro-democracy, and one of his chief allies in the region is a monarchy. So he's increasing that. He's increased the attacks in Iraq. Nobody talks about. He's unleashed the U.S. military on Iran and northern Pakistan. Nobody talks about it. I thought, well, they ignored Obama's atrocity, but Trump is hated, so they'll pay attention to Trump's atrocity. Joke's on me, Jack. Wrong again. So Trump got this big pomp and circumstances that means nothing. Now, I think it is great for all my life. I think it's wrong for the U.S. to carry out war games on foreign soils or foreign waters. And like I said, don't take my word for it. Look at the Nikkei average. Look at the stock exchange. Look at the NASDAQ. Look at all the open trade markets. You'll see they're going down. Because a lot of these computer stocks, they are writing software and algorithms for the Pentagon, for weapon systems. So the U.S. stock market is thrown into yet another whirlwind. Because the U.S., the key source of profit in the U.S. is warfare, weapons, and death, and instability. The problem is, what they're going to tell Trump, it's like, Trump, if you want to end the war games and the war maneuvers off the coast of North Korea, that's fine. Where you want to move them to? We ain't stopping. We can go down to the Arctic and do Arctic war. We can go to the North Pole. We can start doing war games off the coast of Iran. Since we're looking to invade Iran. And in Iran, Obama negotiated a deal to denuclearize Iran. That included inspections, that included confirmation, and in fact, the Iranian nuclear facilities installed cameras that were monitored from the U.S. Pentagon. Who does that? It was an airtight deal, and every single one of the signatories to the Iran deal said that Iran is honoring every aspect of the deal. Again, Iran has not violated. And what happened? Trump blew it up. Trump, in one region of the world, he's claiming to save us from nuclear holocaust, and in another region, he's sowing the seeds for yet another nuclear armed conflict. And we're calling Trump a hero? People talking about giving this fascist a Nobel Peace Prize? And look at the other nations that negotiated peace the same way. Remember, Del Jones told us, the white man is more deadly at the negotiation table than he is on the battlefield. So in 1991, the USSR says we're going to end the Soviet Union. We're going to give all of the nations behind the Iron Curtain their own sovereignty. We're going to let go of Ukraine. We're going to let go of the Balkans. We're going to let go of Poland. We're going to allow all nations behind under the Soviet Union to go their own way. If they want to be capitalist, if they want to be democratic, that's fine. If they want to remain under our sphere of influence and continue to work with us, that's fine. But we're over. We're no longer the Soviet Union. We're no longer an empire. We are Russia. And they took down that big scary red flag with the hammer and sickle, and they went and got themselves a red, white, and blue flag. And Bill Clinton, first Bush, Bill Clinton sat across from Boris Yeltsin and says, yes, if you shut down, not only if you shut down the Soviet Union and you come and get all your nuclear, because they had mobile nukes, because they knew the United States would try to bomb their nukes, so they put nukes on the back of big semi-trucks and would drive them all over the Central and Eastern Europe. So they say, bring all those mobile nukes home, recall your submarines, and reduce the nuclear threat. And we're gonna create this Nuclear Non-Proliferation Act and sign to it that we won't develop or test new nukes. We will not target any nukes. We'll keep the current nukes in place but not expand it. It's a good deal, the best deal. And Bill Clinton sat across from Boris Yeltsin and said, if you do this, I promise you, NATO, the North American Treaty Organization, because they had two during this time, the Warsaw Pact, which was all the Eastern nations, the communists. It's too much history to get into. I'll talk about this some other time, but I just want to say this. I'm going to try to condense it because I'm running out of time. But the USSR was given an agreement by Bill Clinton saying that NATO would not expand if they ended the Soviet Union, because the very purpose for establishing the Soviet Union, the very purpose for establishing NATO was to prevent and to respond to an attack from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union no longer exists, so there was no purpose for NATO to exist. But now NATO is bigger and badder than ever. And so, bottom line is, Bill Clinton, and then George Bush, Barack Obama, and currently Trump all violated this agreement. And when Yeltsin went to Clinton and was like, yo, we had all these agreements. We opened up Russia. They had glasnost, and they released all the files. They took down all the monuments of Marx and Lenin and Trotsky. They just took down all the monuments, and they closed off Lenin's tomb, and they exposed and admitted the crimes of Stalin, and they just were like, we want peace. We're done with this. And the United States defecated all over the deal, lied and mocked. And Bill Clinton looked at Yeltsin and said, you should have got it in writing. Ha ha ha, suck a duck. Libya. I have so many examples. This is what I want Kim Jong-il, if you're listening. That's how they played the USSR, now Russia, in 1991. And Russia went from being a communist authoritarian state to being an open democratic state, and now it's a plutocracy. The United States blew up their democracy with lies, deceit, and subversion. Same thing happened in Libya. Between 1988 and 2003, Libya was under strict sanctions because they were accused of the Lockerbie bombing, sponsoring international terrorism. So Libya, for the longest time, said, and Gaddafi, Muammar said, listen, we are not getting any help from the West. So what we're going to do is try to expand out and work with African nations and create an African Union, African economy, African central bank. And other African nations were told by the United States and Great Britain, if you do any deals with Libya, we're going to decapitate your government. We're going to subvert your economy. And if you survive that, we'll send in the Marines. Say you're a communist or state sponsor of terrorism and blow your stuff up. So they isolated Libya. So Gaddafi was basically like, yo, I'm going to give up my weapons. Because Gaddafi they were more afraid of Gaddafi's nuclear weapons, mustard gas and sarin gas. He had a huge stockpiles of chemical weapons, and he had gotten from North Korea, of all places, some nukes, some uranium to make some nukes. And now he didn't have intercontinental ballistic missiles, but if you got nukes in your border and you say, you come across my border, I'm going to set it off. Death before dishonor type stuff. And so anyway, by 2003, they knew that Libya no longer had these weapons of mass destruction, no longer had the means to defend itself, because it believed in the promises and the negotiated peace that it made with the United States and Western Europe, Great Britain mainly, and France. And we all see how that played out. And I got so many lists of so many nations that have negotiated peace, negotiated settlements with the United States, only to get played. And I'm really afraid for Cuba and North Korea at this point. I mean, it's just falling for the okie doke. The United States, the white man, the Western powers are more dangerous at the negotiating table than they ever have been. On the battlefield. Anyway, this is Bro Diallo. I see y'all tomorrow morning. Peace. Not tomorrow. What am I talking about? Friday. Today's Wednesday. I see y'all Friday morning, 7 a.m. Q4 Radio, AM 1680, iTunes, TuneIn app, and all of that. Go to DialloPinata.com for archive shows. Go to Diallo Patreon for support. And thanks for listening.